What's going on, everyone? I want to talk about Indi's earnings. It did release yesterday, and I have a link down below for you for their edited earnings call. I suggest you listen to it. I'm going to feature a couple of parts on it, specifically the Q&A, because they do kind of cover the geo acquisition. So let's just roll those clips, and I'll get back to you.
To certain areas where there are opportunities that we could see ahead of the acquisition. So effectively, part of our analysis was that we knew we could make hay with this. And then in terms of their growth from the past, you want to take some?
Yeah, historically, they've been on a pretty good growth path. A couple of years ago, they were in the $20 million neighborhood. They effectively doubled last year. And so we're looking to, of course, take that business now to the next level. They've been hindered in the past by their own balance sheet, in some ways the way Indi was. And so I think that's one of the huge synergies here to really explode out their business.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, they're in a similar situation to what we were before we became public, and I think the fact that they're now part of us will release a lot of potential in their product deployment, and you should see a similar growth curve to the one that we were able to realize since we came out.
Perfect. And then as a follow-up, I wanted to circle back to your radar win from some time ago. I know it's your biggest in the company's history and with the top four. What's the feedback been from other potential customers? Are you shipping samples, trialing? I mean, just give us a sense of what the opportunities might still look like outside of your first big win.
Well, I mean, we're not giving a lot of detail about that product development at the moment, and typically we don't generally in any of our product developments. We're on track with it. It's in a good place to meet the time plan that we set out. Generally speaking, having really a one-stop shop of sensor technologies in the market is going to generate all sorts of opportunities for us with all sorts of customers, and we'll report on those opportunities turning into reality as the time becomes appropriate.
Our next question comes from the line of Ross Seymour with Deutsche Bank. Please proceed with your question.
Thanks for letting me ask a question. Two on geo, one technology, and then the follow-up will be on the financial side. So first on the technology side, Donald, you talked a little bit about it in your preamble, but I just wanted to better understand how this business is complementary to, or potentially some substitution for your pre-existing vision portfolio. How do we look at what they bring versus the vision queue you guys had beforehand?
The fact with Geo is they had mature products in certain areas where there were certain pieces of IP that we might have had to reinvent in order to access the market. So really the key in this was accelerating our time to market with the vision queue activities that we have ongoing. The way that our roadmaps work, there will be a lot of opportunity for us to take their IP and our IP and join them into something even better as a step beyond the parts that they have available today. Also, in that respect, there are some synergies in the roadmap which we'll take advantage of and will ripple through our P&L as we mature that. Ultimately, where we see the key benefit in what they bring relative to our whole portfolio is bringing sensor fusion together. It's the next topic that we're going to cut into. We see massive opportunities for that in the market, combining the different sensor modalities and the processing thereof into single platforms. And really that's where we're going to see it have the most traction in the portfolio as we bind them in.
Got it. Thanks for that. And I guess this one might be more for Tom. On the geo side, you said there was a stub in your first quarter guide. Any sizing on that, and just kind of the linearity of how that $40 million you guys talked about in the deal announcement folds in?
Yes, sure. So we're expecting to close this quarter. We're just modeling in a couple million from Geo in terms of contribution. And then from there, it's similar to what we guided for Indi overall. It's accelerating growth, sequential growth throughout the year.
And that's when you said accelerating, you mean year over year accelerating, or the sequentials, quarter over quarters are accelerating, or maybe both?
Actually, coincidentally, it's both.
Now let's take a look at some key points of their earnings, and then we're going to go back to the Q&A. I'm going to feature another clip here that sheds even more light on Geo. But as you just heard, they do expect both sequential growth, meaning quarter over quarter, and yearly growth with their new Geo acquisition, just in terms of Geo. So that's just going to add to their revenue as well as strengthen their line of products. And as they said, they see a similar growth trajectory from where Indi started as a public company. As many of you know, since the THBR days when this was a SPAC, they had their merger and became public. And what we've seen quarter over quarter is very consistent revenue growth. And as a side note, guys, there's a reason that all these analysts that actually ask these questions are raising their price targets. They see this Geo acquisition as more strength for Indi as a stock and as a public company. But looking over some numbers, we saw Q4 revenue 33 million, which is up 10% sequentially, but up 74% year over year. We are still seeing consistent revenue growth, and their non-GAAP gross margin actually grew to 52%, which is up roughly 5.9% year over year and about 1.8% quarter over quarter. Now in the full 2022 year of revenue, they actually got $110 million, which is up 129% year over year. And they did give a forecast of $160 million quarter one annualized revenue run rate moving forwards, and they do expect profitability in the second half of 2023. And initially, earnings wasn't taken too well. We did have a decent sized drop after hours, but as the earnings call was digested, we started seeing it run up. And today we are seeing a very nice day, a breakout of our resistance here. We were in this choppy pattern. We finally broke out, and I want to zoom in and show you that, we had this breakout, we ran up, and then we retested this previous resistance and bounced right off of it as a support. That's a good sign. And the fact that we are continue to break out, the fact that we are flipping $10, we might actually see $10 become a support. And the fact that we got these price target boosts, I'm not surprised that Indi is seeing a nice little run up today. We may of course pull back, but things have been looking really good since the beginning of the year. Now I did want to get back to that earnings call and leave you with the final section of the Q&A, but as I said, I really recommend you guys listen to the full earnings call. It is down below for you.
Our next question comes from the line of Craig Ellis with B. Riley Securities. Please proceed with your question.
Yeah, thanks for taking the question. I will join the long hit parade and ask a geo-related question to start. Donald, as you look at Geo, and this really does look like one of those 1 in 100 deals from a revenue synergy standpoint, but if we're looking at a business that's 40 million now, as you look out 2 to 3 years and think about what's possible with cross-selling and with your vision of where centrifusion goes, how big do you think this business can be in the 2 to 3 year time frame?
In the short term, as I said before, I expect it to take the same profile as Indi did when we came out to the market. Basically, it's kind of a little subset of us now, if you can view it that way. In terms of perhaps the longer term, we're seeing extremely high dollar opportunities and extremely high volume growing as a long-term result of that, which will result in design wins in the future of similar size to the radar design win that we've talked so much about over the last few quarters.
Got it. And then, Tom, so it sounds like with a few million of Geo in the outlook, you're just counting on a couple of weeks at most, and then you would go to a full quarter, obviously, in 2Q.
That's right.
And this business, do you think it sustains the pacing that it had last year as we go through 2023 and 2024?
We do. We see it actually, in fact, more than anything else, we see an enormous top-line synergy opportunity here. As Donald mentioned, the cross-selling opportunities are fairly enormous. So those conversations have already started, so we could see some benefit from that even in the back half of this year. That's not contemplated in the guidance we put forth last week in terms of expecting to see at least 40 million incrementally from Geo this year. And then, of course, that sets the stage, thereafter for 24 and 25.
Yep, got it. And if I could sneak in one last one, Tom, just any color on what drove the gross margin upside in the fourth quarter?
It was a nice combination of things. Our mix just continues to improve. New program ramps layering in. Scale is, of course, a big dynamic here. And then, in general, the supply chain is loosening up a little bit. And so that was also helpful. So all those dynamics are contributing to, have certainly contributed of late to the gross margin expansion we've demonstrated, and we see that continuing. Those very dynamics continuing on our way to 60%.
This is very great stuff, guys. As you heard from them, they said that they see supply chain issues easing. They didn't even factor Geo's revenue growth sequentially that they expect into their forward-looking forecast. And this recent acquisition of Geo definitely adds to the bull case in my eyes for Indi Semiconductor. And we have all the reason to expect revenue to continue to ramp up and continue to grow sequentially, and of course also year over year. Now, how do I see Indi where it's at $10 now? I still see it as a clear buy, despite the fact that we may see a little pullback, we may see some profit taking. But you got to see the big picture here. They are expecting profitability at the end of 2023, and all of their recent acquisitions throughout the years, is continuing to strengthen their offering of products, and things are looking really good in my eyes for Indi Semiconductor. It's still, in my opinion, is a very slept on stock. Very few people know about this one. But how do you feel about Indi Semiconductor, and how do you feel about their recent earnings call? I remain just as bullish, if not more so, from the words said here on the Q&A, and of course just in the call in general. And for me, this is clearly a high conviction stock, but I'm always curious about your opinion. Make sure you leave them down below. Thanks as always, guys, and have a good day.